If you've been following me on Instagram, you know that I decided to watch The Sopranos for the first time over the last 2-ish months. And while I hated 98% of the characters and I complained throughout my entire viewing experience, I had a great time and I'm having withdrawals. I love the styling in The Sopranos, and surprising to absolutely nobody, that was probably my favorite part of the show. You might be looking at the title and fixating on the term tacky styling, but don't let that negative connotation fool you. I mean that in the highest form of compliment. I use the term tacky to describe the styling because I feel like that was kind of the point that was supposed to come across. As watchers looking in, we were meant to see these nouveau riche, maximalist, and flashy characters through the eyes of proper waspy society. I'll say that a lot throughout this video, and when I was writing this video, I wrote out white society a lot, but I guess the term I'm looking for more is like vanilla, mundane, waspy. The whole white thing is tricky because Italian people are white, but like they have a whole history of white Americans treating them as others, and that's kind of, the show frames it that way a lot, and that's one of like the main issues, so you'll hear me saying that phrase a lot. Everything the characters wore was telling us who they were, what world they lived in, and the status that they were trying to achieve. Originally, I had zero intention of making this video. I was gonna make like a short reel only about the stylings of Carmella, Adriana, Jennifer Melfi, and Meadow. Once I started writing the script and looking back at images and videos of the show, I realized it would be rather disrespectful if I made an entire video about The Sopranos and didn't actually touch on the mafiosos themselves, particularly the boss. Tony has an understated sense of style that could easily be overlooked at first glance, especially with all the other more overtly fashionable characters on the show. It's easy to see him as just a simple dad whose main priority when getting dressed is comfort. While this can be true, Tony's dress sense also highlights his unconventionally clever nature and serves to help soften the more ruthless side we grow accustomed to seeing. His staples included various shirts such as bowling, knitted polos, subtle patterns, subtle in comparison to Silvio and Furio, suit jackets, leather, and always a crisp pair of pants because, as we know, a Don doesn't wear shorts.
John said he went to a cookout at your house.
Yeah.
Don doesn't wear shorts.
Apparently, jeans and sweats also fall into that do not wear category. The only time we ever see Tony looking ultra casual / vulnerable is when he's in his many bathrobes, which is very intentional because we're supposed to have this like strong put together image of him. So whenever we see him in one of these bathrobes, that's when he's meant to be like the most disheveled and just not in his best place. I can appreciate that even though Tony isn't necessarily flashy with the way he puts together an outfit, he's accustomed to good quality pieces and looking well put together. His status in the family, both families, is a major player in how he approaches these style choices, not wanting to draw needless extra attention onto him or judgments on what he might wear. When meeting with his mob family, no matter if it's at the Bing, I swear I'm gonna butcher this pronunciation, Nuovo Vesuvio, or his backyard, he has to remain elevated and above them. While he seemingly has no problems with Christopher or Paulie's signature tracksuits or Furio's extravagant Versace shirts, he would never be caught dead dressed like them. You can see his air of snobbiness in regards to his style really shine through when Richie Aprile gifts him this leather jacket, which he in turn gifts to the husband of his housekeeper. Yeah, you could say it's because he doesn't trust Richie, they don't have a good relationship, and it comes off more so as a bride, but I think one of the main reasons he gifted it is because he literally thought it was ugly and he thought it stunk. Basically, it wasn't up to the Tony Soprano standards of fine outerwear. I also wanted to highlight how much Tony loves a good accessory. A commonality between himself, Carmella, and the rest of the gang is that they all sport gold jewelry. I'll get into why this choice is very interesting when I cover Carmella in particular, and whether intentional or not, it played a vital role into successfully othering Tony and his family from the wealthy, traditional, waspy, white Americans. We always see Tony with his nice gold watch, a Cuban link bracelet, his gold wedding band, which literally means nothing to that man, and a gold pinky ring. I love the inclusions of both the Cuban link bracelet and the pinky ring because they're both pieces of jewelry that represent wealth, status, power, and success in one's career. Junior has to be one of my favorite characters on the entire show, and I'm gonna go as far as to say he's my favorite male character on the show. I often have to remind myself that this is a man who is a ruthless individual and on multiple occasions wanted his nephew dead or tried to kill his nephew, not just some cute old man with good style and incredible glasses. But on this channel, I choose to focus on the positives. Let's talk about my favorite piece of Junior's styling, which I just mentioned, his glasses. Not only do I love the big framed 80s inspired look that I now associate with Junior Soprano, but anytime I see a pair, I mainly enjoy that they are included for functionality and not style. Junior was introduced to us at the age of 70, and he's always been a glasses wearer, so it's safe to assume that with age, he's begun needing a stronger prescription, and those are the specs that came to be. Junior is also our insight on how the traditional mob once operated, both in his leadership techniques and how he dresses. He's closer to the fashions of Michael Corleone than Paulie Walnuts. Every time I think of Paulie, I have to laugh, so I'm not even gonna cut that out of the video. Paulie I hate him, but he's hilarious. Junior's outfits are very demure. We rarely, if ever, see him in patterned shirts. He's always in a cotton polo or a button-up. Nicely tailored dress pants with the occasional cardigan or wool overcoat to top off the look. Similarly to Tony, he also accessorizes with a nice watch and a ring. Because he's not married, I don't know what the ring signifies or if it signifies anything at all. He's also king of the newspaper boy and the trilby style hats, adding that extra flair that feels authentic to not only a man his age, but also a man of his status. I know there's not a ton to say about Junior's style, but the subtlety is what I loved about it. And you'll notice this pattern with most of the character styles that I'm highly appreciative of. Fun fact, Christopher is actually the reason why I decided to watch The Sopranos for the first time. I was watching the second season of The White Lotus in 2022, and something about Michael Imperioli's performance really captivated me. I loved his character on the show, as you do when you like an actor. You look up everything they've been in, and I was like, oh, he was in The Sopranos. I used to see memes of this guy and Adriana. And also, Adriana was in Desperate Housewives, and then I realized she was in Sopranos, so like kind of both of them made me watch it. Anyways, tangent aside, funny enough, I hate Christopher. I think he is probably one of the characters I hate the most, like with a burning passion, but he is one of the best characters on the entire show. If Junior was our tie into the old school mob days, Christopher is the one that was ushering us into the new age. His outfits a lot of the times were very casual. He's basically the king of tracksuits on the entire show. Sorry, Paulie, and I don't know if I can say his name or I'll get demonetized. Sporting suits from brands like Nike and Fila. He also loved a specific type of tracksuit, the Geniali, which was a popular Italian branded athleisure. He's one of the few mob members I actually remember wearing jeans and sneakers, and that plays into him being more of a street gangster at the start of the series. Some of this does change as his rank in the family elevates, but it's still an integral part of his costume design. Going back to his signature tracksuits, this tells us that Christopher is in tune with fashion early on. Streetwear gained a lot of popularity in the 90s, and because Christopher is among one of the youngest members of the family, the contrast of his tracksuits in comparison to some of the older men is subtle yet noticeable. Unlike with Junior's glasses, Chris wears these for both functionality and style, letting us know he's cool and aware of what's happening on the streets, which is important in his business. You can see some of the influence Tony has over him in the patterned shirts, polo shirts, and leather jackets he sometimes opts for. When he decides to be a bit more dressed up, we often see him in nice quality button-ups and a blazer. It's not until he becomes a made man that we see him in more suits and actually sporting ties. Since he hasn't necessarily accomplished a lot in his career, and spoiler alert, he never will, he doesn't get the honor of wearing a pinky ring. He does, however, always wear a watch and a gold pendant necklace, occasionally a stacked one like the fashion baddie he is. I feel like I need to sit up more so you can really see my fur coat. I'm not sweating in this for no reason. Like, it needs to be seen. It's part of the bit. A fun little detail about Chrissy is that his love of designer and name brands extends to the women that he's attracted to. Like, this is a guy that literally gets extra horny for a girl after finding out that she's wearing Manolo Blahnik heels. Same. His gifts to Adriana consisting of Jimmy Choo heels that are in a size 10 for some reason, and other extravagant pieces that were just as much gifts for him as they were for her, if you know what I mean. 90% of the people that clicked on this video, I know this is the section you've been waiting for. We're finally getting to the meat of this meal. Adriana is who everyone thinks of when they think of the Sopranos fashion, whether or not they've watched the show. Even though she doesn't actually hold the status, Adriana exemplifies the mob wife aesthetic or mob wife fashion. But because she doesn't hold the status and she's a bit younger than most of the wives, she gets to dress more like the goomars, bolder, sexier, and much more obnoxiously. Adriana has an affinity for animal print, with two of her most famous looks from the show being her tiger Roberto Cavalli dress and her tiger print catsuit. Prints were her signature, from leopard to zebra and tiger. She didn't discriminate. She had a range in her wardrobe, being able to switch it up from jeans to velour tracksuits, miniskirts to sundresses, leather to fur, and ultra crop tops to chunky sweaters. She wore it all. She did, however, love a form-fitting silhouette, with most of her outfits containing figure-hugging pieces. A detail I liked about her styling, contrary to the mob wife aesthetic stereotype, we actually didn't see her in fur that often. It made sense because at the beginning, Christopher wasn't as highly ranked. Therefore, he wouldn't be able to gift her fur in the same way that Tony would be able to gift it to Carmella. With our girl Adriana, more is more. That's especially highlighted in how she chooses to accessorize. Her hair is always big, with her curls always demanding attention. Her nails are long, just like Carmella's and the other wives, but she sticks to dark colors like burgundies or plums, sometimes even with designs that make them all the more noticeable. Adriana is also obsessed with jewelry. She's never seen without some kind of obnoxious stack on her. The way she styles her jewelry is like someone who's just so excited to show off all of their expensive pieces without a care in the world about how they look. In her mind, the fact that they're expensive is what makes them look good. So putting everything together at once adds to that beauty. One of my top 10 Adriana looks is when she's gone to the tennis lesson with Carmella. She's wearing a royal blue sports bra, what looks like regular non-athletic white shorts, and a ton of jewelry. Of course, her jewelry is all real gold, so there's no concern in sweating in it. It's just hilarious how she doesn't take off a single piece, even when she's working out. Adriana, like Christopher, represents the younger generation of the mob life. Everyone is obsessed with labels and luxury, but she's forthcoming about it. Her clothes are loud, the name brands are at the forefront, and she openly flaunts it in ways that the other women are more cautious and mindful of. The deliciously tacky title is mainly for my girl, and I love her for it. Carmella is someone I imagine Adriana never got the opportunity to develop into. They share some stylistic similarities, which isn't shocking considering the world that they live in. Carmella is just a little bit more demure about how she presents herself. But don't let that description fool you. That doesn't mean she's necessarily conservative with her outfits or how she accessorizes. Being a very fashionably put together woman, Carmella likes wearing matching sets, shirts with higher necklines, and stylish blouses. And much like Tony, she doesn't ever wear jeans. Even with this more reserved nature, her love of making a statement still shines through, with her furs, love of animals / bold patterns, and embezzlements like glitter, pearls, or rhinestones. Carmella's ability to transform and in a sense code switch her ensembles is pretty impressive. Even when she's in her more classy outfits, wearing no patterns, classic silhouettes, and remaining in neutral monochromatic colors, there are key indicators about her that don't allow for fully submerging into the vanilla of quiet luxury. Her long, well-kept manicured nails were the first. Earlier in the show, she opted for a more chunky yet shorter square French tip, which in contrast to how she kept her nails in the later episodes, looked a lot cheaper. Her later nails were longer and more of an ombre style, which made them look a bit more toned down and less eye-catching in comparison to Adriana's manicures. When you see the other women on the show not associated with the mob, they tend to have shorter nails, even if they're French tipped as well. To this day, long nails are associated with negative connotations like poor hygiene, unprofessionalism, superficial tendencies, and ironically, cheapness. Have people ever looked at how much a long set of acrylics cost? Because there's nothing really cheap about that. Even though she didn't opt for vibrant colors like Adriana, the style she chose to stick with was still congruent with the stereotypes others had about Italian Americans, especially those associated with mob activities. The second identifier was Carmella's love of gold jewelry. You're probably wondering why that matters, considering that Tony wears gold, Christopher wears gold, Adriana wears gold, virtually everyone in their world wears gold. I'll preface this by saying I don't know if this detail is meant to be read into a ton or if we were even meant to come up with this distinction, but because I am making a video analyzing the fashion, I guess I'm supposed to be reading too much into things that other people kind of don't care about. If you weren't aware, weirdly enough, gold jewelry didn't always have this reputation for being like utterly desirable, even though it's obviously very expensive and valuable. If you've ever watched this cute little indie show from the 90s called Sex and the City, I don't know if you've heard of it, you might be familiar with the episode where Aiden tries to surprise Carrie with an engagement ring and she absolutely hates it. Carrie would not be caught dead wearing a gold banded engagement ring. Hello, that is a serious piece of jewelry, and ghetto gold is only meant to be worn for fun. Stacking gold jewelry had a racial connotation because of its popularity in black spaces, specifically rap music. So it's interesting to me that Carmella never really chose to wear silver. Even when she wore mixed metals, gold was always her preference. And that's another excellent detail to show why waspy white American society would often judge and other them for their tastes. Not only was Meadow our only teenage girl / early adult woman representation that wasn't a stripper at the Bing or a prostitute, she was one of my favorite characters. She showed us what it was like to be affected by and connected to the mob, not only in relation to romantic relationships. Yes, I am a lover of 90s and 2000s fashion, therefore I absolutely adore Meadow's style. Much like a 90s fashion girl, Meadow loved layering her pieces in fun ways, usually going for a striped crop top over a t-shirt, then adding a cardigan to spice it up. Her wardrobe wasn't as strict, allowing her to wear all kinds of things like jeans, cargos, corduroy, miniskirts, slip dresses, and much more. While she had her moments with experimentation and brighter colors, Meadow would tend to lean more in the darker, grunge direction of 90s fashion, opting for smoky and dark makeup looks as well. As she matured, her wardrobe remained very simple and cute. She wore the kind of looks you'd see in an online article titled 90s Fashion Trends That Aged Well. Maybe it's because she was young throughout the show. She didn't seem as interested in or impressed by designer brands and lavish jewelry like the other women. Of course, we saw this contrarian attitude in her personality and saw how she often challenged her parents. So the consistency in how she was styled is an added detail I love. Although she's not a big jewelry wearer in the same way Carmella or Adriana are, in the beginning she's seen wearing silver, and as she gets older that slowly switches to gold. Maybe this happens subconsciously because as the show progresses, she starts to compromise her initial morals to defend her family and the businesses they're in, eventually sealing her unfortunate fate of repeating the sad mob wife cycle that she often ridiculed Carmella for. Her fate is slightly different as she is more empowered by having an education and a career in the law field, so I think of her as an updated mob wife. Updated wardrobe included, hold the fur. For now. The way I ride for Jennifer Melfi needs to be absolutely studied. When I found out there are people that genuinely didn't like the therapy scenes or found that Melfi wasn't impactful, I was so confused because I was wondering if we're like watching the same show. I'm sure you've heard this joke a million times and therefore I have to say it again. Jennifer Melfi invented the office siren, and the difference between her and the little girlies running around on TikTok is that she can pull out a good little corporate look without having to get a HR meeting on the books. Melfi is someone the other characters would position as being the ideal Italian American. And we see on several occasions that she has to put up with casual prejudice about her culture from people that she works with, sometimes her own partner or ex-partner, who is also Italian, because she's treating a mobster. Even though we mostly see Melfi in professional settings, I highlight the ideal Italian thing because how she dresses in contrast to all the other main women on the show is much more in line with what's considered not only fashionable but appropriate for a woman like her. Melfi is always in a monochromatic suit, sometimes a skirt suit, wearing neutrals or dark colors like gray, burgundy, or black. Her outfits share similarities with Carmella when she's dressed more formally, without the added personality indicators. The best way to describe Melfi's dressing style is smart. She knows that because of the type of work she does, she needs to present herself in a way that's professional, but also basic enough that her clients find her approachable and can converse openly with her without fear of judgment. Generally, her non-work attire doesn't deviate much from her work attire, the only difference being that she might show a little bit more skin. It's not a surprise that Tony inevitably starts gaining feelings for her. That man couldn't keep it in his pants even if you threatened to cut it off. However, when he said that she had this sexiness in the way that she carries herself in dresses, he was spot on. It was very interesting considering her style is so different from all the women that he's been with. Not just Carmella's, but his goomars as well. I also have to mention that Melfi's shoe game is absolutely insane. I don't know if I'm gonna find the clip or the photo of this, but I'm gonna work tirelessly until I do. She has this one pair of heels that are like just like a strap and then a stiletto. It's amazing. Nobody's forcing her to wear stilettos and totally serve during these 50-minute sessions, and yet she continues to do it time after time. She can do no wrong in my eyes. Since we're on the topic of goomars, we have to talk about Tony's main side pieces. Irina, Gloria, and Valentina all had completely different personalities and came from different worlds, but they definitely shopped at some of the same places. Or at the very least, Tony shopped at some of the same places for the gifts that he gave all three of them. Irina is a 20-something Russian immigrant. Gloria is one of Melfi's other patients and a businesswoman, and Valentina is a professional goomar. That's like not even that funny, but like I laugh every time I read that line and when I wrote it. I'm not sure what Valentina actually does or if that was ever like explicitly mentioned. All I know is that she was introduced as Ralph's goomar first. Introduced in season 1, Irina was Tony's long-term girlfriend, and we didn't see a ton of her unless they were fighting in her bedroom or on his boat. Her sense of style was youthful and without making it weird, kind of reminded me of Meadows. She often wore black, red, leather, and girly pieces with lacy trims and frills. We also knew that she had a thing for animal print after seeing her reaction to the gorgeous zebra print merino blondic boots Tony got her. Gloria, a short-lived, literally, fling of Tony's that turned sour, was a bad bitch. Everything about her outfits were incredible. She stuck to brown and black shades in her clothing and loved fur. From the full fur coat to the fur-trimmed leather trench, or one of my personal favorite, her fur trim what looked like corduroy jacket. She also accessorized in interesting ways we didn't see from the other women, like wearing headscarves and thick sunnies. We didn't see much of Valentina, but what we saw from her was iconic. Her white cheetah print fur coat lives in my mind rent-free. Similar to Irina and Gloria, she stuck to darker colors with a preferential shift towards purple tones. Unlike Gloria, who sometimes wore turtlenecks and some more modest pieces, Valentina loved wearing low-cut dresses and tops, leading with her sexuality at any turn. Mr. Steal Your Girl with a low ponytail, aka Furio, has some of the most memorable clothing pieces in the entire show and possibly the most distinguishable style among the men because of his damn shirts. If you thought the other men loved a fun little patterned shirt, you're in for a treat when you see Furio's collection. His button-ups were always making a statement, being the loudest pieces in the room, from the day he boarded the plane to Italy and landed in Newark. When he was being a bit more laid back, he often wore leather jackets and the occasional tracksuit. Silvio, in retrospect, was a character I didn't have much issue with except for his distractingly full lace front. He's another very stylish mafioso, showing us the importance of knowing how to rock a well-tailored suit. He didn't shy away from colors, funky patterns, and the occasional fun tie. His wardrobe was, at times, pretty eclectic for someone in his world, and I had to respect him for that. Inventor of the skunk stripe and both mine and Chrissy's biggest op, Paulie was the reigning runner-up of the Tracksuit King title. I can't recall how often we saw him not wearing one because he probably had hundreds. I swear Paulie isn't an outfit repeater because I don't think he ever repeated one of those. When he wasn't in his signature suits, like Silvio and Furio, he enjoyed a more playful patterned polo shirt and a leather jacket, sometimes a blazer if they had to be more formal. He mirrored Christopher in the sense that he wasn't really the type to be dressed formally, and even when he had to be, he didn't go all out and still maintained an air of comfortability. I can respect the opinion that this is one of the greatest shows ever made, but I think a lot of that praise and honor should also fall onto the costume design and the costume designer, Julia Tolska. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that name correctly. She helped create a dynamic, interesting, and realistic world while giving younger generations like myself a ton of fashion inspo. I'm super excited to see the intersection between people that already like my content and Sopranos fans somehow finding this video, and I hope that both intersections of people like this video. It took me really long to write the script, so I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. I finished my costume design class, which is why I haven't been posting. I've been focused on getting my certificate, baby. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in my next one.